It's not just Canada, right? Some other countries are also reviewing their contracts to buy these very expensive fighter jets.
One example is the F-35 fighter jet made by American aerospace giant Lockheed Martin.
The F-35 fighter jet was supposed to become the crown jewel of modern warfare, a multinational cutting-edge project that could revolutionize air combat. But now, cracks are forming in the foundation of this billion-dollar enterprise. Countries like Canada and Portugal, once key players in the program, are reconsidering their commitments, and the reverberations could be felt far beyond the expanse of North American airspace. Amid rising tensions and shifting alliances, the world may be witnessing the unraveling of one of the most ambitious defense projects in history. So, what went wrong? How has a fighter jet heralded as the future of air dominance found itself at the center of controversy? And what ripple effects could this have on the geopolitical stage? Let's dive into the drama surrounding the F-35 program, and how Canada, in particular, has become a major disruptor in this unfolding story. Freshly minted Canadian Defense Minister Bill Blair has sent shockwaves through both diplomatic and military circles. Just weeks into his tenure, Blair has announced that the government is actively reviewing whether the F-35 stealth fighter jet truly serves Canada's best interests. This comes after years of deliberation, a $19 billion deal, and a signed contract for 88 of the coveted jets. The first deliveries are scheduled for 2024. But Blair's remarks suggest that Canada may be exploring alternatives, perhaps even walking away from this costly commitment altogether. In an interview with CBC's Power and Politics program, Blair hinted at his government's unease with the program's overall viability. While the F-35, crafted by American aerospace giant Lockheed Martin, was initially identified as a key platform for Canada's Air Force, the defense minister noted that discussions are ongoing. "We are looking at other alternatives," Blair said, going on to highlight that Canada's interests might be better served with a mixed fleet, adding jets from European suppliers such as Sweden's Saab Gripen into the equation. Why take this unprecedented step now? The answers are rooted in both domestic priorities and international pressures. The skepticism surrounding the F-35 is not unique to Canada. Portugal has suspended its own plans to procure the jets, citing growing concerns over the predictable reliability of its ally, the United States. Defense Minister Nuno Melo made it crystal clear. Recent behavior in NATO has made European leaders nervous. Melo raised provocative questions about the F-35, such as whether the US government could impose operational restrictions, delaying critical software updates or cutting off access to spare parts. His statements strike at the heart of a fear that has plagued many nations reliant on American-made defense systems, the potential for geopolitical leverage being woven into their military readiness. This fear of dependence is painfully familiar for Canada. Long-standing trade disputes, threats of economic annexation under Donald Trump's presidency, and tariffs that soured bilateral relations are still fresh in the minds of Canadians. Many are wondering, should billions be spent on military equipment that could lock them into American oversight for years to come? Adding fuel to the fire is the fact that all major overhauls and maintenance for the F-35 fleet would need to take place in the US, rather than on Canadian soil. In contrast, Sweden has floated a tempting proposition assembling the Gripen fighter jets in Canada and transferring intellectual property rights, enabling local maintenance. Could this empower Canada's defense industry while sidestepping reliance on its southern neighbor? The question looms large. At its heart, this dilemma reveals a deeper challenge: Canada's identity within the international defense community. Blair has confirmed that analyses are underway, weighing not just cost but strategic implications. A mixed fleet would bring logistical headaches. Separate infrastructures, supply chains, and training protocols would make operations complex. Yet compared to the growing unease over American policies, and the increasingly politicized nature of military contracts, these pains might be worth enduring. For Lockheed Martin, the stakes could not be higher. Rebecca Miller, the company's director of global media relations, assured the public that Canadian contributions to the F-35 program have brought significant economic benefits, over $12 billion since 1997. Losing Canada as a buyer, whether partially or completely, would strike a blow to this multinational supply chain. But even Miller couldn't ignore the controversy surrounding the F-35's alleged kill switch. an online conspiracy claiming that US-made jets could be remotely disabled or limited at Washington's command. Although Lockheed denies these claims, they've added to the shadow of mistrust that has haunted the project since its inception. Still, Canada and Portugal are not the only ones reevaluating their positions. Across Europe, French President Emmanuel Macron has seized this moment to promote strategic autonomy and strengthen Europe's defense sector. Macron has long viewed dependence on American military equipment as a threat to Europe's sovereignty. The F-35 program, with its undeniable reliance on U.S. infrastructure and operational data, stands in direct opposition to this philosophy. Now, Macron is doubling down on his crusade to shift EU member nations toward French and European alternatives. In a recent interview, Macron proposed bold incentives to NATO partners countries currently buying American fighter jets should consider switching to France's Dassault Rafale, or similar EU-made options. He stressed the need to cut costs and eliminate bureaucratic hurdles for local manufacturers, making European defense solutions not just more appealing, but more competitive. For decades, France has resisted joining global programs like the F-35, opting instead to bolster its domestic production capabilities, and that resolve seems to be paying off. Already, Rafale fighters are in service with nations like Egypt, India, Qatar, and more, positioning France as a rising power in global arms exports. This push for autonomy in Europe stands in stark contrast to the collaborative, multinational nature of the F-35 program. As a joint venture involving 19 countries, the F-35 was meant to symbolize the strength of transatlantic alliances. Yet, as more countries question the program's cost-effectiveness and reliability, fissures in that unity are becoming apparent. What began as the cornerstone of US-led defense collaboration now risks turning into a cautionary tale of overreach. Meanwhile, the stakes are just as high in Canada, where aerospace firms involved in the F-35 supply chain are watching anxiously. If Ottawa fully withdraws from the contract, penalties are inevitable, but Canada's gamble also carries an element of strategy. If European suppliers can offer compelling alternatives, the market disruption caused by Canada's reassessment could snowball across NATO, prompting further defections. Already, states like Portugal have shown signs of leaning toward French and Swedish solutions, a trend that might shift the balance of power in military procurement entirely. In the bigger picture, Canada and Europe's hedging against American dominance comes at a time of broader geopolitical flux. The war in Ukraine has revitalized NATO's purpose but also exposed rifts between member nations. At the same time, China's rapid militarization and Russia's aggressive maneuvers are pushing countries to rethink how their alliances are structured. For some, maintaining independence within the NATO framework is becoming more important than adhering to traditional defense procurement practices. At the center of this storm is the F-35. Uniting technological innovation with political controversy, it's become more than just a warplane, it's a symbol of choice. Will nations opt for collaboration under US terms, or reach for independence? Will Canada's reassessment embolden other countries to explore alternatives? And most importantly, what ripple effects will cascade through the defense industry as a result? These questions hint at the transformative changes coming to the global military landscape. For Canada, the decision to stick with, or step away from, Lockheed Martin's prize jet could reshape its own defense policies and its relationship with the United States for decades to come. But for the world at large, this could be the beginning of a pivotal shift in how power, autonomy, and alliances are defined in the 21st century. The skies are still open, but turbulence is ahead. The outcome is far from certain.